I think Dr. Nikhil, you are unmute. You have to unmute. So just I'll get an idea whether I'm audible to all of you or not.
Yes, sir,
Uh,
you are audible.
Okay.
you are audible very much.
Very thank you. Do you want me to switch on video? Or it's okay, fine with you all.
I think you should on your video, sir, and you can share your screen.
Okay.
So,
Uh, Very warm evening to all of you, and thank you, Dr. Nikhil,
so guys, may I introduce you? Sir?
uh,
Good
for
evening,
giving us.
everyone. Today, today evening we are having Dr. Praveen Kodgar with us. Dr. Praveen Kodgar is an associate professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering at Pandit Deendayal Petroleum University. After completing PhD from IIT Bombay, Dr. Kodgar worked as a postdoctoral fellow at CSM Colorado, USA. Prior joining as a former head of the Department of Chemical Engineering at Pandit Deendayal Petroleum University. He has more than 16 years of teaching and research experience. He has taught various chemical engineering courses to UG and PG level students. His research focus is biofuel, energy and environment, wastewater treatment. He has published a good number of research articles in peer-reviewed international journals. Recently applied few of the patents as well. Currently, he is supervising two research scholars for doctorate work and guiding more than 20 PhD students in the area of energy and environment. Apart from his having conferred with research awards and fellowship, Dr. Kodgar is carrying out various consultancy research projects worth nearly 5 crore, where the fundamental and applications of chemical and energy engineering are focused. Now, I request Dr. Praveen Kodgar to enlighten us with his talk. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nikhil, for giving me this opportunity to interact with you all and share my some experiences in the field of biofuel and bioenergy. And I think must congratulate you and your department for coming up with a very important theme, which is a need of the hour, that is energy management for sustainability. Both the issues are crucial and very important. So without taking much time, just give me a minute so that I'll start with my talk. So I hope the screen is visible to all.
Yes, sir. This is visible, sir.
Yes, sir.
So again, thank you to all, my Dr. Nikhil, and let me just start with my presentation. Prior to that, I would like to just introduce myself. As already Dr. Nikhil introduced, but I belong to Pandit Deendayal Petroleum University, which is located in the capital of Gujarat state, Gandhinagar, and we have a focus of education in energy engineering and management as a university mandate. We have here four different schools: petroleum management, liberal studies, technology, and petroleum technology. These are the engineering branches, and there are several center of excellences, among which the Center for Biofuel and Bioenergy Study is also being taken care by me and my other colleagues in the university. So all sort of like energy related studies, may it be conventional or may it be non-conventional energy studies, we are doing as a part of research theme and research focus at the university level. So with this brief background of mine, I'll just move on to today's theme, that what we are going to basically, what will be my focus of the presentation. So, being the topic is of nature, that I need to give you a bit of energy scenario. What is the current state? What are the challenges in terms of sustainability and in terms of growth? And what are the solutions? All the challenges are there. What are the solutions? And in that, I'll try to put up something in the field of biodiesel, which will make the essence of the today the course theme, that is how the energy management, in that energy management, this biodiesel sector or biodiesel going to play an important role. So we all know that there is a need for energy. As an engineer, we have already studied, and then without energy, maybe our any daily activity or maybe any instrumental activity, energy is crucial important role, not for individual but for broad sense. And today, if you most of us we are aware, Honorable Prime Minister is more emphasizing on the national energy security. Now, once we have this energy plays a vital role in terms of accommodating the several aspects like political security, economic security, social security, cultural security. These are all integrated or interrelated with the energy security. Now, what on other sense, these are the energy security is a indicator of Atmanirbharta or Atmanirbhar Bharat, what even today has been more emphasized and proclaimed by Honorable Prime Minister. Along with that, positive progressive growth for the betterment of the nation as well as betterment of the globe, self-sustenance, self-reliance, and more importantly, sustainable development. I'm aware and I'm sure that we all are aware what a sustainable development indicates. Both we need to take about the progress, at the same time on the second hand, or on the other hand, we need to think about the mother nature as well. Now, let's look into what are the sources of energy. Again, this is not very new thing, but we are all aware. Here I'm just focusing the different components of energy other than fossil fuel. Fossil fuel is presumably considered as an integral part also. Renewables, coals, wind, solar, which are the upcoming the components. Then utilizing these, some of the fractions, the hydrogen, some of these are the like new components of the energies as well as the old components of energy through which we basically take care of our energy needs and energy requirements. Now, having understood the different sources, let's have a look what is the current global trend and current global scenario in terms of the energies concern basically. So here it gives a schematic representation over like last 1950 to like for an entire decade, how the energy scenario in terms of the sources is going to vary or is varied over the different decades. So by and large, we all know the petrols, of course, they were discovered since 50s. Prior to 50s, 1950s, the coal was the major prominent source of the energy as such, and much of industrialization was not so much there. But after the World War II, a lot of industrialization took place, and a lot of research went into different fields, and different sources of energies also come up into the market. If you look into the projection, because some projections are important down the line to the topic which I'm going to basically present. So if you see here, the coal is prominent, but over a certain period after 2020 or by 2030, it's probably going to get little decline. But prominently the bottom one, oil and biofuels, is as good as a more or less stabilized. Now here I'm just focusing both the things, that is oils, that is petroleum based, and the renewable fuels in terms of the liquid forms. And if you see here, the global energy demand is increasing, which we all know. The population is increasing, living standard is increasing, and the need of the energy is increasing day by day. However, some of the components, they are playing a declining role in terms of their availability and their kind of say utilization for the future growth demands and requirements. Nonetheless, the energy what where the source typically mostly from coal or natural gas or the fossil fuels, it doesn't come with a uh, cheaper cost, or it comes with a certain price. What is that price today? This is a scenario. Again, it's more than 1.5 decade centuries scenario is given, that is a CO2 emission. And last year, the CO2 emission was the largest so far till the date. At the same time, this just gives a CO2 emissions and how you can see post industrialization, a lot of activity took place in terms of urbanization, industrialization, most of the transport sector, power sector, so on and so forth. And country wise, everyone is contributing for this CO2 emission into the atmosphere. And that's what is the major challenge. The recent, and most of you, those who are residing in Delhi, are more aware about the pollution, what you are basically going through. And the CO2 emission or CO2 concentration is the topmost over last 8 lakh years. Just imagine what kind of activities or what kind of the environmental challenges basically we are putting and we are forefront. So like that basically brings down to certain very kind of say known or buzzwords today everyone is talking about in terms of the challenges like air pollution, global warming, fossil fuel depletion, so on and so forth. And we cannot just, if you talk about the sustainability, we cannot overlook these challenges. And anytime we need to come up with a concrete solution for these challenges if we want to sustain and if we want to survive for the in the future time period. Now, having said that, let's look into a quick different projections of the components of the energies. So what you observe here is over last 3-4 decades, renewables, which I have spoken in the previous slides, that the limitations with the conventional fuels, the renewables are gaining a prime importance and major focus. Nonetheless, the quantum of the energy requirement cannot be completely fulfilled by renewables, but still they are the potential players to take care of the sustainable growth point of view. Apart from that, this just another graphical representation which talks about the energy requirement across the different sectors, maybe industry sector, power sector, and transport sector, as a another decades projection or another 20 years projection, so and so down the line. So every component is basically increasing, except domestic, still it is increasing. But if you look into power, industry sectors, they are going full-fledged, and miscellaneous other sectors which are going to contribute the need of the energy. So from that perspective, and in order to take care of the challenges which I specified, what is the motivation for going ahead with the theme? So what are the motivations to think for something from the sustainable development or sustainable growth point of view? We all are aware in 2015 that was the major milestone where almost 198 countries across the globe met in the Paris, and during that conference they have taken a particular oath that we are going to decrease the carbon emission by what are the means responsible. Apart from that, with all those updated informations, government of India is also not running behind. They are also on the forefront and come up with a policy about the sustainable fuels or green fuels, which can be affordable and can take care of the environmental concerns and challenges. Furthermore, as I specified in the previous some of the slides, that for the growth of the nation, the transport or the diesel consumption plays a very important role. And generally today we are getting most of the diesel from the petroleum based sources. And as I already mentioned, it is projected by 2050, the most of the petroleum reserves are going to get depleted and come to a certain saturation level. And looking into the environmental concern point of view, they may not be prominently available for the common people. So we need to look for something else which can cater the common man's requirement and needs. Apart from that, when we talk about major is a transport sector where the diesel is being consumed, we need to look for the alternative, what we are giving as an energy alternative. It should be compatible for the existing engines. And more or less, in the view of the global challenges which we have just discussed, the stringent norms are being set by the statutory bodies as well as government. And recently in April 2020, we have come up with instead only Bharat 4 kind of fuel specifications. We have jumped to Bharat 6 stage fuels. And as many of us we are aware, the main critical point is most of the parameters are same like Bharat 4 fuel quality, but one of the important criteria is the sulfur content should be 10 ppm. And we all are, being an engineer, we know if from a certain equilibrium to a lower equilibrium, if you have to come up, there has to be lot of engineering has to be done into the existing systems in order to maintain the specific standards and qualities. So these also parallelly a challenge which needs to be taken care, and for those perspectives we need to look an alternative. Is there any alternative available? Of course, reduction of the emission is another motivation. So is there any alternative, or is there any solution available for the motivations or for the previous challenges? Yes, biofuel is one of the important motivation for all these aspects. Why? It is a renewable fuel. Another, it controls the emission. There are studies that if you use a petrol diesel and if you use a biofuel, for that sake I'll more specify biodiesel, there will be at least 30% less emission from the same amount of fuel which is burned. And just imagine what kind, and more or less the petrol diesel, when it gets burned and the CO2 leaves into the atmosphere, that is a open cycle. CO2 will not be captured back. Whereas the the renewable biodiesel, if you burn, that CO2 which is kind of released will be kind of captured back in the carbon cycle or CO2 cycle, and the overall impact on the environment can be substantially or significantly reduced. More or less, this will lead us to give a energy security, and as I said, the fuel is very much compatible to the existing engines up to certain composition blended with the petroleum diesel. That makes the uh, biodiesel as a one of the important prominent kind of say candidate. Let's look into another few facts. I'll not take much time on those. I'll jump on the other topics. But these some statistics as an Indian, we should be very much aware. We are the fourth largest petroleum consumers. We are fifth largest primary energy consumers in the world, and we are sixth largest or sixth number in the energy demand, which we're going to basically increasing and all these things. And we already just specified, I'll not get into more these of details, that more or less the demand is increasing and we need to take into account the environmental concerns. And that as already specified and come up with the policy, and then some aspects I'll just touch upon just to get the few feel to the youngsters if available on the platform, to get an idea why there is a momentum or tremendous potential available for these biodiesel sector basically. So when we talk about biofuels, it can be either liquid or gaseous. So bio means plant derived or the natural or renewable based concern basically. And then it can be used in place 100% or in addition or in terms of in the forms of blends with diesel petrol, that is a petroleum based diesel or gasoline, generally petrol what we call, for the transportation as well as the stationary sets, maybe diesel sets, gen sets and all these things, or some portable or any other viable applications, domestic or industrial application. That's how broadly biofuels are basically designed. And there are a lot of research going on. There are different, based on the type of resource which you are using to produce these type of different green fuels, they can be divided into first generation biofuels, which it's called as bioalcohols, biodiesel, but they are mostly derived from the vegetable or something which you are consuming. I'll just touch upon some problems associated with that. And uh, typically the countries like India, the problem is we have huge population, and what are the current agricultural products of vegetable based oils are there, they are right now insufficient for the people itself. So if you go for this option, they will create a food security problem basically. So only the developed nations like Europe, USA, Canada, they are focusing on this first generation, but they are now also switching over to either second generation or third generation biofuels. Second generation is the non-edible fuel feedstocks which are used, and from them, whatever the fuels which are obtained, they are called the second generation. And third generation, where a lot of research across the globe is going on, where the microorganisms like the algae, which is being targeted, which contains huge amount of fatty acid base, and they can be converted into the requirement of not biodiesels but variety of the biofuels, because, because now this particular point will get make more clear. When we talk about biofuel, it comprises these three different components. I'll be focusing on this little more. So bioethanol, which is compatible for petrol, bio oils, which are compatible for the aviation fuels, or some kind of say plantation oils like fuel oils or FCO and all those things. Whereas biodiesel is more compatible with the petrol diesel. That's how briefly one can get an idea and feel what biofuel means basically. Now there are different sources. I'll not get again much into details. Each has a very thorough kind of knowledge and importance is required. But just to give a brief idea, there is a bioconversion route, there is a thermochemical conversion route, that is gasification, there is a fractionation routes from which by like adopting a different intermediate stages of transformation, chemical transformations, you can get variety of the different products which can be utilized for our daily needs. And amongst these different routes, what I'm going to focus is today fat and oils. They has to just basically purified. They basically once you purified them, they contains these different fractions. In subsequent slides, I'll just highlight you what do you mean by triglycerides, what do you mean by fatty acids, and then they can be converted by either of these two ways. That one is a transesterification to get biodiesels or hydroprocessing to get the renewable diesels and other hydrocarbons. So this will be the major focus of my talk in terms of the biodiesel is basically concerned. There are many other routes which I just showed here, but they give a different type of feedstock renewable fuels, like what I discussed in the previous slide. What is a biodiesel or biofuels, which we generally call as. So as I said, this will be more focus. Now, I'll just quickly run through why this is important. If you just see certain statistics again, little bit, by 2016 there was a $100 billion market was there, and in 2023 it is going to rise to $132 billion, and by another 5 years it is going to reach to 150 to $160 billion. Just imagine, it is going to get, or it is gaining a tremendous importance in the global arena. Again, these are some different statistics. Why I'm this focusing? Because India's kind of say population, India's potential, India's kind of say today standing in the world is going to make in terms of consumption as well as to tackle the challenges, because a lot of research is going in this particular domain in India, which is very at par with the global standard in terms of providing the solution to the energy sustainability or energy kind of say security point of view, because India is going to play a major role. And that's how you can look into these numbers for the different type of uh, biofuels which I just specified. Uh, as I already said, that make the government to come up the policy. I'll not get into many more details, but the current certain issues which are there, they were can be also taken care, where the farmer community or agriculture community can be also kind of say benefited by taking care, or the kind of the policy was initiated in 2003 but revised in 2009, 2011, and recently 2018 and 2019. As a part of 2019, it has now made mandatory that petrol, diesel, or petroleum gasoline should have some fractions of gasoline, should have, or petrol should have fractions of ethanol, that is bioethanol, and diesel should have fractions of these biodiesels. So by 2030, government is planning that what are the diesel will be sold on the petrol kind of the petrol pumps or gasoline stations, they will contain, or it will contain 10% of the biodiesel. Now just imagine, even I consume or different the feedstocks and convert them all into biodiesel. India today is only able to produce 0.14% of the biodiesel, or that much blending is only possible. So to reach the target of 10%, there is a plenty of opportunity available for the youngsters in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of research, or coming up with new ways to produce the biodiesel. So as I said, the policy is a kind of say devised in a way that These are the different people. So if you just see every section of the society, may it be local, may it be national, or may it be global, is going to get benefited. May it be industry, may it be individuals, may it be agricultural community, may it be administrators, everyone is going to basically get benefited. That is the important idea. Is there any issue? So everything is fine.
Go ahead, sir. Nothing wrong.
Yes, Dr. Praveen, it's going good.
So, like, I'm not going to just brief you a little bit what we are doing in India in order to take care of this particular field, or what kind of activities we are doing in the my university. So these are the broad areas we are designing, developing, and even demonstrating energy efficient, eco-friendly, industrially viable technologies for biodiesel production. Our focus, as already specified, is a non-edible feedstocks. In subsequent slides, I'll talk you, and which I already specified what is the limitations with the first generation biofuels. Of course, when you talk about for engineers, we need to do optimization of a process and process standardization. So those activities basically we do, and as a part of the center, we come up with some new ideas, train the students for entrepreneurship activities. So with that particular thing, I'll let in little bit get into the technicality of the topic basically. So when I spoke about the biodiesel, now what kind of raw materials goes. So when you talk about biodiesels, what I require is either oils or seeds. They can be edible or non-edible, but here I have focused the non-edible more. Then there is another chemical which is required, that is alcohol, and one more important entity required is a catalyst. Now let's first look into the feedstocks. So these are the different feedstocks. But as I said, in India, we are not much focusing. Most of the developed countries, Europe, USA, Canada, to an extent Malaysia, because they have a lot of palm oil and all those things. These are the different countries they are focusing the edible sources. Whereas in India, these are the non-edible sources which I have focused here. Apart from these are just some representative one. There are many more situations, geographical location wise. There are specific non-edible feedstocks available. Those are basically targeted, and along with that, with the recent policy by 2018, the waste cooking oil which is generated across the domestic applications as well as the industrial applications, that can be also utilized for production of the biodiesel. So there is a plenty of opportunity for something which we call today as a waste, and from that waste to bring out a value addition, waste to wealth. Now, this is a bit little alien word for a typically, if I understand, most of the guys are the mechanical engineer, but it's don't get disturbed or kind of say this is basically this is a transjustification reaction chemistry, which I spoke earlier, how biodiesel basically reacts. So this is a particular component called triglyceride, which is present in the oil or oil bearing seeds. It reacts with this alcohol in presence of catalyst. Now, this catalyst can be acid or base. When I say acid, then it can be HCl, H2SO4 kind of acids in a very trace quantity. Whereas the depending on whether they get mixed with the liquid fractions of oil or alcohol, they are either called as homogeneous or heterogeneous. So this basic understanding is sufficient at this level. So what as previous slide which mentioned, oil component, methanol or alcohol component in presence of catalyst. What happens here? Now this blue box gets transferred. Now this triglyceride basically it's a combination of the three block boxes which are attached with this pink box. So this pink box during this reaction gets migrated to this and produces glycerin, whereas this blue boxes, three different blue boxes, gets converted. The some part of this OH here, get attached to this blue pink box, whereas the CH3 attached to this and this, rather say this individual CH3 goes to individual of these boxes, and you get the, so 1 mole of, this is called 1 mole of triglyceride will give you 3 moles of the, or 3 units of the methyl ester. So biodiesel technically is also called as a fatty acid methyl esters. And another important byproduct, so many of we are using most of the cosmetic products, this glycerin plays an very important role, and which can add on the cost for your entire production of biodiesel process. to like as a side product although it is produced, so it can be sold, and overall a green approach can be adopted for biodiesel production. Just to get a little more idea, which these some of these aspects I spoke already. Glycerol we already seen in the previous slide. This is a triglyceride that also we have seen, but these triglycerides depending on the different types of seeds, like non-edible seeds I just spoke about, the mahua or the neem oil seeds, or karanja, jatropha, castor, so on and so forth. They contain different chemical structures. What chemical structures? Now here if you see, these are the chains. These are called as a long carbon chains, maybe 12 carbons, 16 carbon, 20 carbons, 22 carbons likewise, but they are attached to the other end. This is a glycerol end. But sometimes depending on the nature of the fluid, many times we hear that don't eat too much oily oily stuff, because it will create cholesterol, so on and so forth, and health problems and all these things, because they contain some saturates, unsaturates. So what is that thing? So these are the some little insights. So saturate means there are all chemically all the bonds are single bonds. Monosaturate means among these single bonds, one of the bonds, carbon-carbon bond, will have a double bond. That's how this is called a unsaturated. And polysaturated means many carbon rings or carbon-carbon bonds are multiple bonds, double bonds are there. And generally these type of structures are harmful to our health or harmful to our body. So mostly your pure ghee is of saturated fatty acids basically, whereas monosaturates are to an extent fine. But if you go beyond these are the health related problem. I'm talking from the food point of view, but these things also create some problem for the reactions. So these points are sometimes needed to be understood. Whereas sometimes these feedstocks, which are specified as a non-renewable, non-edible feedstocks, they contain some sort of free fatty acids. And from the biodiesel production point of view, I need these fractions less, or these kind of fractions less. Otherwise, if I start the previous reaction which I showed, triglycerides react with alcohol in presence of catalyst, this fatty acids. Now just look into this. These are the three such carbon links attached to one link. So three links are here together, whereas here it's only single link of the carbon atoms basically. But this link is prone to form the soaps. So your final reaction will be reduced, or main product will be reduced. So these components needs to be taken care from the biodiesel production point of view. So just wanted to give a basics what goes when you talk about the biodiesels and how biodiesel is produced and what precautionary measures we have to take care. So as I mentioned, depending on the double bonds present, the saturated, monosaturated, unsaturated, and polyunsaturated types of fatty acids. And generally any acid if you take, it is a combination of these different acids. So the fractions will plus and minus. But this free fatty acid we need to get rid before we have to go for the biodiesel. Now having understood these things, we have to understand what are the techniques available for biodiesel production. Now this is a particular thing I already specified in the initially that my specific topic is basically biodiesel production via process intensification. But why before getting into process intensification, I would like to tell what is a conventional way, or today most of the biodiesel production is taking place by means of this conventional. This is also called as a mechanical stirring method. Now this particular, you take the oil, you take the alcohol, you add the catalyst, heat it up to the particular temperature, just have a mechanical stirrer which is rotating at certain speed, and then 3 hours 4 hours the reaction basically taking place. That is what general chemistry, and the same chemistry basically was. But this particular process has these many limitations: higher reaction times, high energy consumptions, high catalyst requirement, because once you get the final product, you have to separate biodiesel, glycerol, and then a lot of water washing has to be done. We have to get rid of the catalyst, and that produces pollution and contamination. And more or less, the overall biodiesel production will be relatively less. So in all, this makes a relatively costly methods. So that is one of the basis or reference technology. And here comes the importance for the process intensification. What is process intensification? Is improving the profitability, remaining still efficient, okay, or competitive. This is what in nutshell with 4 words we can define process intensification. This particular concept generally we study when heat transfer and all these things, this process intensification is more appealed and more understood basically, with changing the different type of flow geometries or changing the kind of say tube dimensions and all these things, the process intensification basically can be done. So although in late 19th century this particular concept has been emerged, more today it is implemented in the chemical engineering area. Rather, it started with chemical industries as such, but now it has entered into every field, may it be environmental, may it be civil, may it be mechanical, may it be chemical, may it be electrical. You name any field, intensification is coming up into the full fledged. So what are the benefits? So it's a kind of say bringing new apparatus or new techniques, or bringing some dramatic improvement at the manufacturing stage, or any design modification. Like these are the different ways by which we can look into the process intensification. So what we can say is any engineering development that leads to the sustainably substantially smaller, cleaner. So now look into this cleaner and energy efficient. These are the important aspects from the sustainable. So all these aspects, and that's why if you look into these days, people are looking for ultrasound techniques, microwave techniques, or centrifugal fields or supercritical fluids, so on and so forth. These are few examples I'm talking about, which are irrelevant for the topic point of view, but there are many more areas where process intensification is basically taking on. So biodiesel also not a field which is get rid of this particular thing. In biodiesel area, the supercritical reactors, the ultrasonic intensification reactors, microwave reactors, as well as the hydrodynamic cavitation intensification techniques. I have just highlighted their advantages and disadvantages, which are not easily taken care by the reference technology, that is mechanical stirring, which I just earlier specified. Nonetheless, all these individual technologies have their own limitations in terms of high energy consumptions, or somewhere ultrasonics has a heat transfer limitations, or microwave has a mass transfer limitations, or sometimes if you go for certain other approaches, there is in situ approach for biodiesel production, the cavitation technologies may not be so useful or important. So for that, what I'm going to focus, although we have worked extensively on each of these individual techniques, in terms of, or to give a new flavor to each one of you, I'm going to talk about a new concept, that is a hybrid technique. What is hybrid technique means? If we all know the intensification effect and the conversion or the yield, that how much a better product we get. So what we want is we want to be on this quadrant of this particular graph, and this particular thing can be achieved by doing the hybridization. So two techniques can put together. So here then my hybrid technology which I'm referring about is a combination of ultrasound and microwave, or synergic effect, simultaneous effect of microwave and ultrasound. Previous slide I have showed microwave has a limitations of mass transfer, as well as ultrasound has a limitations of heat transfer. But if I combine both these techniques, it's going to give me overcome the individual limitations of each techniques. So I can overcome the mass transfer limitations as well as heat transfer limitations, and increases my product efficiency. That's how I am bringing this process intensification. So where I'm expecting maybe 60-70%, I may expect 100-120, or if I get into the topmost right quadrant, I can even achieve a 500% yield or performance of the system. So let's look into biodiesel. What is in situ biodiesel production? I'll club here, and depending on probably this study will be more helpful, being you guys all mostly from the mechanical background. So as I said, the biodiesel, its application is mostly in the transport sector. But although I said a lot of positives about the biodiesel, but in terms of taking care of the CO2 emissions, so on and so forth, but this biodiesel has one problem in when it goes for the combustion, diesel engine combustion, NOx increases. All other emissions probably can be taken care, but the NOx basically is a major culprit, and most of the reason for the Delhi pollution is the NOx also. So even most of the researchers, they have identified that NOx is one of the major concern when you are using only biodiesel. Already spoke how biodiesel is produced. Now I'm giving you, even you add in the diesel engines, diesel and the biodiesel mixtures up to 30% concentration, the overall NOx is increasing. All most of the studies. Now, uh, we have I'll now this is one of the problem which I'll address little later, but prior to that I'll explain what is the in situ. But before that, so I have put into together two different objectives. One is I need to produce a biodiesel with a energy efficient and environmental friendly way. At the same time, whatever biodiesel I'll produce, if I use in the petrol diesel, I need to get rid of the NOx emission. So how it is done? So for that we have applied this TI technique, we have applied this in situ approach, and then we have come up with a new concept. And for based on that, we have recently published a paper also, which is shortly I'll give the details of that. So those who are interested may look into that. It's a very nice, interesting study which is recently published. So for that, what we did, we have added a butanol. Now butanol, why butanol we have used? Like ethanol, which is a bio-based, because most of the sugar cane, after you get the sugar cane left out, sugar can be converted into bioethanol. So like Brazil is the topmost country today. They have 100% petrol pumps where their vehicles are using only ethanol as a fuel. In India also we are using, but not to the great extent that Brazil what is doing. So like that, the N-butanol or this butanol can be obtained from the green route. So we don't have to depend on the petroleum-based products for getting this butanol. Otherwise, this is one of the product of petrochemical industry, which is generally obtained from the petroleum-based products. But there are green ways or kind of say renewable ways by which you can get the biobutanol. So what you are doing is you are making more and more greener and cleaner fuel. So what is the in situ means? Earlier I spoke that you have to take oil. Now here I'm not going to take oil, because for oil we have to crush the seeds, and majority of the energy is applied into crushing of the seeds, and you get the oil, and then that oil is basically transesterified to get the biodiesel. What we are doing is we are using seeds as it is, but so I'm reducing 70% energy for oil extraction, as well as what I'm doing is a in situ concept, means for transesterification you are reacting. So that is a simultaneous extraction and reaction. So from the seeds, the oil is removed in the system itself, and then that oil is simultaneously getting reacted with the alcohol in presence of catalyst. So I'm producing biodiesel directly from the seeds. And for the process, I already mentioned the use of hybrid approach, ultrasound and microwave. What it gives me, it removes the mass transfer and heat transfer barrier. Otherwise, if I only use ultrasound or microwave compared to the mechanical stirring, they have their own individual limitation. That limitation also I'm getting over. So if I do so, now we all as an engineer are aware, but I'll just give a quick snapshot what ultrasonication involves. So the continuous waves, ultrasonication waves under 20 kilohertz up to 40 kilohertz range, they will create a cavitation effects, and then it will start bubble formation of the liquid which is present, or the gases which are entrapped in that. Those gases or bubbles will start growing. So growth of the bubbles, and then after certain micron range bubble growth and all these things, it explodes. Now this explosion is so vigorous and so fast that the at the molecular level or microscopic level, 500 K temperature rises and almost 1000 bar pressure is coming. And this basically helps me to improve the mass transfer, because this reaction is between the viscous substances, and that unless alcohol and the acids or fatty acids or oils doesn't interact with each other, the biodiesel will not produce. And for that, the mixing or mass transfer is important. So that I am achieving by cavitation. Whereas at the same time, this reaction particular requires a heat. So by this bombarding and by giving the polarized heating at the molecular level, the heating is also directly given rather than through a indirect heating source or by through coils or by heating up the solution. This microwave provides the necessary energy for carrying out the reactions, because both the things are taking place simultaneously into the system. That helps me to better of the now I'll not get into much into detail. You have to do the characterization of kind of say raw oil or raw material. Here for the in situ approach, we have used castor seeds. This is another non-edible feedstock. And importantly, India, and in India, Gujarat is the topmost producer of the castor seeds, where out of global 1.8 million metric tons production, India produces 1.58 metric million tons, and out of 1.58 million metric tons, 1.42 million metric tons is produced in Gujarat. So that was a surplus product, and most of them it is just available and sold as it is, with no cost. So to bring a cost to this particular product, we have choose this castor oil as a castor seeds as one of the. So there are certain properties of this feedstock which you need to specify. Where earlier I mentioned it should not have free fatty acids, so on and so forth. To estimate those things and then get certain parameters known for better reaction conditions, some raw material characterization is done. And this sort of hybrid reactor, so from the bottom ultrasound and from the sides microwaves were used for the reaction. So this is a hybrid reactor which was used. I'll quickly run through the process how we produce the biodiesel. So we got the seeds, they were grinded to 30 seconds for a particular particle size. Then the moisture was removed, and then in the paste or whatever this paste is there, alcohol is added and catalyst is added. Solution will look like something. The reaction is carried out in the hybrid reactor which was shown. Then I already specified the biodiesel produces, glycerol produces, they are separated out. Here little extra alcohol has to be added, that alcohol is removed, and then biodiesel, glycerol, and traces of unreacted methanol, as I said, all those are removed. See, this biodiesel will look something like this, and if you look into the conventional diesel, more or less the appearance looks same. A little yellowish tinge may vary here and there, and this particular product was characterized for density, viscosity, calorific value, flash point, then the residues and all these things. So likewise, this process went for the biodiesel production from the in situ process. I'll not again get into, as already specified, we did the process optimization, so on and so forth, by doing the kind of say RSM statistical methods and using the different analysis and all these things. So where you use the central composite design method, and we tried to optimize based on this methanol to oil molar ratio, catalyst percentage, reaction time, reaction temperature, so on and so forth. There are different ranges are being given here. So when we, as I said, these are the different technique GCMS is used to find out the raw material characterization as well as the final product, whether what is produced is diesel itself or not. That was thoroughly established, and some other properties which I mentioned, those were estimated. And this is something important, that almost 94% of oil was fruitfully converted under these different reaction conditions. It may look little odd for some of you, but this is the first kind of study which we published in somewhere 2018 in the kind of say entire kind of say globe. You can say the first kind of we have reported the in situ approach for these biodiesel production. Why? I'm just giving some statistics here. So already spoken that what are the techniques we are developing? They are energy efficient. So here there are three columns. One is the only mechanical stirring, that is a conventional process which I mentioned. Then there was a reported study in the literature using mechanical but in situ approach, and here the method which we have adopted. So if you look into energy input for our system was 80, whereas the literature was talking about 260 energy units basically. So what we have shown, and here the batch size was 20 gram, and of course these are mechanical study only, where almost both the studies are giving the same amount of energy, but almost 3 times less energy used by the hybrid approach, more or less. If you look into this, another important and kind of say statistics, that is 3 to 5 times energy efficient per kg of biodiesel production. So if you look into, if I get 1 kg biodiesel by conventional mechanical study, I need 37 kilowatt hour energy, whereas by hybrid technology, I only require 7 kilowatt hour per kg of biodiesel production. So these techniques are a bit scalable, little certain challenges are there, but that's how the biodiesel produce tested for the different properties. And I'll just quickly look into the other studies. Now, as a mechanical engineer, you all are very expert to know the specifications of engines. So it is a single cylinder 4-stroke diesel engine we use, Kirloskar made basically. And then these are the some different specifications which we used for the single stage, this single cylinder 4-stroke engine. Then I'll not get into many details of this. These are typical setup. We have measured the different parameters, speed, rotations, RPM, and then exhaust emissions, so on and so forth. Based on that, so what we did the blending. So B0 means 100% biodiesel, petrol diesel, and B5, B10 are the different fractions of the biodiesel along with the petrol diesel. So we did the conventional study with only biodiesel, which we obtained from the in situ study, and the petrol diesel, which is available in the market. So what we observe, the CO and unreacted hydrocarbon emission, they all decreased when we increase the biodiesel blending. And that's what I said. Most of the other emissions are reduced when you add the biodiesel. And that's how it is basically more useful in terms of controlling pollution. But what we observed, when we increase the biodiesel blending, the NOx emission keep on increasing. And that was one of the important challenging task for us, how to take care of this NOx along. We have taken care of little bit of CO2 and other emissions, but how to take care of NOx? And for that, we have added the butanol in the different fractions. Here we only use up to 30% blending. As I said, the existing engines, CI engines, they are compatible with the 30% blending. If you add more than 30% of biodiesel into petrol diesel, you need to do the engine modification. So we don't want it to get into those critical things. So we limited ourselves within 30%, and all the maximum three fractions, putting everything total 100, diesel, biodiesel, and butanol, which we have added into the system. We have varied the 30% into 15, 15, 10, 20, 20, 10 fractions, and neat diesel results we already had with us. So what we observed for all these fractions, then again we estimated the different fuel properties which are important. And if you look into, they are all at par. So compared to only neat biodiesel, most of the blended fuels, they are having the calorific values close to diesel. But if you little bit increase biodiesel fraction, calorific value little decreases, because biodiesel itself has a relatively less calorific value. But they are fall within the ASTM standards, by which it can be easily used for the fuel or as a engine fuel. Then based on that, when we did the studies, what we observed, these are again different engine loads. These testings are done for the brake thermal efficiencies and brake specific fuel consumption studies and so on and so forth. What we observed is the engine performance was not adversely affected when we add the butanol up to 15%. But beyond 15% addition of the butanol, especially these brown dots, what we observed, there is a deterioration of the engine performance. So we have limited the biodiesel butanol fractions up to 15, and then we did a little more detailed analysis. So what we observed again, by addition of the 15% of butanol, 15% of biodiesel, and remaining is 70% diesel, what you observed, CO emission was reduced by 90%, whereas unreacted hydrocarbon emission reduced by almost 20%. And interestingly, again, this study, as I mentioned, we have recently published in this particular reference. Many those who are interested, if you can read. So almost 50% NOx reduction was achieved with very better and smooth engine performance, basically. And that's how the process intensification approach as well as green approach was adopted. And as I already said, the biodiesel is definitely going to contribute in terms of energy sustainability, because we are slowly getting rid of our dependence on the petroleum based products to the renewable based products. Apart from solar, wind, and all these things, biodiesel is going to play an important role, because the transport sector is going to be there. Petrol, or kind of say petrol based diesel, will be available, but it will be stagnant for power applications by 2040 or 2050. But most of the automobiles which are running on the roads, for that the biodiesel will be one of the alternatives. Although there are concerns that by 2030 or after 2030, the most of the vehicles will be electrical driven, but still that is a really ambitious goal, but practically impossible to achieve. And most of the vehicles, four-wheeler vehicles for the cement industries, power industries, or automobile sector requires the diesel, and where the biodiesel is going to play an important role. And such a unique approach where blending of a third admixture can definitely take care of the environmental concerns and take care of the energy sustainability, basically. So these are some of the summary of the work which I just spoken to you all, that the biodiesel by optimization was produced, and when we just add only biodiesel, NOx was improved, which was taken care by adding the admixture butanol, and 50% NOx was removed with a 15% butanol as well as 15% biodiesel into 70% uh, diesel combination of the mixture. And overall biodiesel which was produced by hybrid process was found to be 3 to 5 times energy efficient compared to the mechanical process. And this in situ is now being looked as a very promising approach in the industry level. A lot of pilot scale studies are going on to bring this type of technologies into the market. So I don't know, Nikhil sir, let me know whether I need to where to stop or I need to continue. So I'll accordingly I'll move on. I know I have taken little time, though, so I think there are many other studies, but I'll just stop here, uh, and I'll just take some questions of
Sir,
some of you if you have.
yeah, Professor Praveen, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Uh, my name is Anil Kaul. I was into automotive and
Okay.
currently into consultancy.
Mhm.
First question to you would be, what is the scope of commercialization looking forward in by using this hybrid of petrodiesel, biodiesel, and butanol? Have you done any study on how quickly can it get commercialized? That's question number one.
Yeah, as I sir mentioned, we just recently published and we are now approaching to the competent authorities in terms of bringing out the novelty of our research, because what I look prominently will be the one of the deterring factor could be the butanol, because if you look into the cost of the butanol, it is not so kind of say easily kind of say put into. But if you look into long term point of view, which again I was focusing about, and which every one of us needs to be focused. Maybe not now, but at a certain later stage of point of view. If you talk about the environment, if you are not going to take care of our environment, and recently also we are experiencing the kind of harshness into the weather, the patterns of the seasons, and so on and so forth. Somewhere we have to take care of the. Maybe sometimes it will kind of say cost little to our pockets, but these type of approaches, I may not say only butanol might be, but this is one of the prominent approach where the fuel is very compatible with the both biodiesel as well as the petrodiesel. That is one of the option, and we are actually in talk with some kind of say maybe automotive manufacturers as well as the government agencies, so that they can come up with some kind of policy decision. Because what we observed is, unless there are certain policy initiatives are taken care or bring into the kind of say administrative level, even though whatever the research we are doing in the academic stage, probably it may not hold a better standing in the market basically.
Okay. So, any this thing, any figures on what is the cost of production of this, tentatively or roughly?
You mean to say the hybrid approach?
Hybrid approach, yeah.
Yeah,
Per
so what
liter
we
cost.
observed is almost whatever the conventional we produce, if timing, if I'll not just add on the butanol component, but if I just talk about the hybrid approach to get the biodiesel, almost 15 to 20% less than the conventional. So it will further improve, because there are certain factors which we are basically working, because the as I already mentioned, there is a glycerol as a one of the byproduct. If you sell it in the market, that will add on a revenue to your entire process. Plus the, because here we are directly using the seeds, and then what is the left out of the seeds, there are techniques available which I specified in the previous talk of biodiesel production there, that is called basically biomass. And from converting that biomass, because the seeds generally the castor seeds which I spoke, it contains 50% oil and 50% will be a solid mass. So that 50% is left out as it is, so that can be further converted into useful product. So it will be, I can just add on, it will be a kind of a biorefinery approach. So maybe only I just gave an example of castor seeds, But in place of castor seeds, if you fine tune the process, any kind of non-edible seeds can be utilized and the process can be very self-sufficient. And whatever I just mentioned for only biodiesel, but 15 to 20% less than conventional, that cost can be bring down furthermore, maybe 50% less than the conventional process also. And at the same time, I'll get the other valuable product which has market demand.
Okay, okay, that's fantastic.
Just to add here, if I may please, see there are a lot of incentives that government will be giving in on biodiesel, and especially in Indonesia, there are a lot of tax waivers that government has announced. Now, I know this because I work for a lubricant company, and I work with the engine OEMs also, and I was involved in the entire BS6 development with major OEMs. The other aspect is now in Europe, uh, the biodiesel is getting into application. In Indonesia, it is getting into application. Now in Indonesia, I think B20 is a normal thing, but they are now asking for B30. And the specifications of lubricant also now is getting into compatibility with the biodiesel. So it's evolving very rapidly. And I think it's only about a balance and availability of the biofeed stock to really create a biodiesel in India. But wherever possible, it is taking shape quickly.
Yeah, true. I
So
agree with
how do you
your
think the
point.
competition
So
is
that's what
going
I
to be?
said. We
How,
cannot now take the, we cannot now test the environment any furthermore. We need to come down and maybe sometimes require conservative approaches or sometimes out of the box approaches, and we need to protect the mother nature. That is foremost. That I again giving my based on personal perceptions and reading and all these things. And what you just mentioned, sir, yes, yeah, these are the lot of initiatives taken across the different level to bring out the solution to the problem.
well, how's the I mean, how is it going to be uh, taking over? Because as you also mentioned, and there's a lot of in thing about the electric vehicles coming in.
Yeah.
So who's going to win the race? Because how do you think we are going to be quickly commercializing this so that the direction of this also is considered in policy decision making?
Sir, I think if I understand and probably earlier also many times our Prime Minister also a little bit emphasized on. If we look into Indian population point of view, probably not a single solution may help. Probably battery application also we need to emphasize. So certain class of society may afford that. There will be certain class of society for them we have to come up with another alternative. But again on the renewable front, because again there are a lot of kind of say petroleum based industry. They are forcing that 2050, although people are projecting that there won't be any petrol reserves as available and all this thing, but the petroleum production is going to get stagnized, and whatever is the produced will be going to a specific maybe industrial application, may not be available for the domestic front basically. And we have seen that world requirement of the energy at domestic front, because population is increasing, living standard is increasing, a lot of urbanization is going on, so more vehicles will be on the road. And battery, if we talk about, many of us we are aware currently the storage is a big problem, and the distance with available storage, the mileage which we can take care is another problem. So if you talk about the fast moving growth and all these things, the liquid fuel cannot be get rid of so easily. So maybe again this, that's why I said the by 2010 or so, or 2015, 5% blending was there, but then that target could not achieve by even 2020. As I said, 5% is already targeted for 2020, but what we could achieve is only 0.14% blending of the petrol diesel across all the fractions. And 2030 the target is 10% biodiesel blending into the diesel basically. So what I see is here, likewise, multiple options we need to provide to the customers as well as to the market players as well as industries, either academics or industry, both have to come up with some alternative. And that's why I said, and maybe you are also aware, algal research, which is now going to, that is called as a third stage or third generation, because most of the seeds are also, except castor, most of the seeds are having only 20%, 22% of the oil fraction. And that again limits the lot of kind of say output, whatever is there cannot be taken, the demand and supply, that problem will basically come into picture basically. So to take care of that, the algae is there where most of the mass, that is again bio stuff, which can be converted into the bio oils, and that those bio oils are as good as a petroleum crude, where you can get the different fractions of the industrial grade fuels or industrial grade chemicals.
Thank you. Thank you for from
Good.
my
So
side.
please ask if we are going. So Professor, this is Praveen Gupta. I have one question. You said
Yes,
that
sir.
the cost of this solution could be worked upon can be 50% lower than the conventional, right? So
Sir, can you just, there was a lot of disturbance backhand I'm getting, so can you just repeat, sir, your question?
What I'm saying, there are a lot of, you mentioned the cost-wise, it is a significant reduction, right, in the cost.
Yes.
But despite of that, why it is not being taken off by the industry? I'm saying the cost is so much reduction. And
Yeah, that's what I said.
government is paying so huge this thing of the import of the fuel, because most of the fuel is being imported. So why this is not happening? I'm saying despite of a good level of research being have already happened.
Yeah, sir. Now slowly pilot level studies are going on. Most of the industries are coming up with the kind of say PI technique approach. Only thing is, as the bottleneck is the feedstock, which I think someone already mentioned, the availability of the feedstock. So fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, but this biodiesel or biofuel sector is such that typically uh, technologies are available, whether it is conventional or whether it is advanced. But here now today, what is controlling is the feedstock. Again, the advanced world also, their population is less, so they can, whatever is generating in terms of the edible feedstock, they are converting. And across the globe, which I showed, a lot of activities going in the biodiesel or biofuel production. May it be animal tallow, may it be canola oil, or may it be then rice bran oil, sunflower oil, likewise palm oil and all these things, which we cannot afford. And from Indian context point of view, non-edible is a basic concern. And that's what I said, unless government comes up with a policy where agricultural sector can be also benefited, because the concept initiated somewhere in 2010 as a jatropha, which will be cultivated on the kind of non-agricultural land, but it was a kind of a non-successful project basically, because generally these days people think about jatropha only, and we need to understand probably or accept that it's not a success basically. So some alternative, and more or less these type of activities needs to be done decentralized, because whatever the geographic location wise non-edible feedstocks or some other feedstocks are available, the local community needs to be kind of say made aware or kind of say trained to take care of their local needs, so that at least some demand on the kind of say dependency on the petroleum based products can be reduced, at least for that sake. That's what I said. The market somewhere in 2016 was $100 billion, which is by 2030 23 it will be $134 billion, and by 2025 it is projected to be 160 or more than that $1 billion. So it's picking up, sir. It is picking up. Only as I mentioned, the raw material thing is been taken care. Probably there are bright scopes.
Okay, if I can add a little more here, I think one is availability, yes. And while it's a good fuel, clean fuel at a much lower price, possible price, there are certain challenges with the biofuel as well. You know, it leads to a lot of deposits in ice engines. It leads to a lot of sludge formation. So that's why even the OEMs who manufacture engine, they are limiting the usage of biodiesel. I think the B5 or B10 is the max that OEMs recommend today.
Yeah.
While governments are pushing it to even go to B20, B30 in Indonesia, as I said earlier,
Yeah.
but there are certain limitations which OEMs are working on. Secondly, as Dr. Praveen mentioned, you know, while it reduces your particulates and all those kind of stuff, it leads to a increased emission in form of oxides of nitrogen, the NOx, what he said. Now, again, there has to be a balance to really treat that, because there's a limitation and there's a limit which you can, as for NOx, to emit out of the tailpipe. So I think it will evolve, Praveen. It's taking shape, but it's not just fuel. There are other parameters and other, tangents that need to be addressed and looked into to make the entire project very, very successful, meeting the holistic approach of a cleaner fuel with the, right emissions at a right cost. So it's evolving over a period of time.
Yeah, that's what I said. So like it is going to evolve, because if we look into, sir, Indian context point of view, and many of us are aware, we are not lagging globally, but generally what advanced world does, and then after 5 years, almost a decade earlier, the trend was when initially Dr. Nikhil just introduced somewhere in like 2009-10, I was in US. So that time what the US was doing, huge amount of work in biosector and energy sector, typically solar and all these things, which started, we started somewhere in 15-16 onwards. I'm not talking all, but I'm saying in general as a known thing and all these things. So what they have already saturated or come up with, an this algae has also been more kind of say addressed by the advanced world, but something is limiting in terms of their interest and our interest, local interest or kind of national interest point of view. What they are using probably will not be useful for us, and that's what I mentioned earlier also. The edible feedstock, although we are producing good amount, but if we focus them for the biodiesel production point of view, we'll starve our people. People will be kind of say already not getting bread and butter, but they will create a big chaos in the system. So our probably the challenges are different, little different as a different nation in the global arena. But yes, I agree, sir. We are the things are evolving with a holistic approach for sure.
Is biodiesel being used in Brazil in commercial way? I heard that Brazil is very active on this front.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah. I wanted to know, is biodiesel being used in Brazil?
Yes, sir.
In
commercial
way. I mean, I heard that they are very active and they have started producing biodiesel commercially also.
Yes. But as I said, like they are the one who were come up with the 100% ethanol-based fuels.
Okay.
And again, fortunately, I happened to be again long back somewhere in 2007, 2008 in Brazil, and that time I have seen petrol pumps were having 100% ethanol.
Okay.
They were like selling the 100% there, because they are the surplus sugarcane manufacturing kind of say production, and then a lot of distilleries and all these things are there which are producing the kind of say the bioethanol. But yes, they do in the area of biodiesel also, and to an extent they are producing it to an commercial extent, in a commercial ways. But the techniques which I mentioned, they are again conventional techniques, not the techniques of kind of say best process intensification or the energy efficient one.
Okay.
But to answer you, Rajneesh, yes, it's basically a blend which is already in use today, a combination of petrol-based diesel and a biodiesel. So B10, which I said, which means 10% of the biodiesel and 90% of the petrol-based diesel, that kind of a blend is already in use.
Yes.
But Rajesh, coming back to your question on this, that's exactly what Professor Praveen is proved out in his study, that you can go up to 30%. And he says that the emissions are better off, except the NOx, after adding the butanol and all, it gets reduced by 50%. And if you see the engine parameters and all, they are comparable with the pure petrodiesel. So that's what is attractive of this. If your emissions are within control, if your engine performance is at par, and your particulate matter is not going beyond the petrodiesel, then this should be the in thing for tomorrow, isn't it?
You're right, sir, and that's what I said. There's a couple of challenges which are being worked upon, and one of them is basically the deposits it put onto the pistons and all. So, it is being worked through a formulation of lubricant to really design a better detergency and a dispersency so that it keeps the pistons clean. And once you get to that level, I think gradually we see a increasing percentage of biodiesel into a fuel. And as I said, like B10 is a very common, which most engine manufacturers recommend and they allow in certain markets, depending upon the geopolitical pressures. They have allowed B20, and as in Indonesia, in a special case, they have allowed even B30. So gradually it is increasing, but all these engine manufacturers also have to work through these multiple challenges they come across in terms of deposits, sludge, oxidations, and all those stuff in the engine,
Yeah.
which in a long term would actually be very detrimental to the overall engine performance. Initially, it may not show up, but gradually, as you build up those deposits and all, and if they're not taken care of, they will definitely have a detrimental impact on the overall performance and even up to emissions.
So what you say is probably what uh, we need to tell Dr. Praveen is that longevity of the engine performance needs to be validated in due course, right?
Correct.
Can we say that that's an important aspect to be looked into?
Yeah, it's basically combination of engine, lubricant, and the fuel, because all three are working in tandem together. So all everything has to be balanced so that we get the right output from the entire combination.
Yeah, I mean, we looking towards like cloning a diesel engine with current set of fuel, what we get from the petro companies, and what is there in the market available at a commercial price, which is there currently prevailing, right?
Right.
Anyway, thank you. It's an interesting discussion too, but interesting research also.
Thank you.
From my side, Dr. Praveen, thank you. Thank you for giving us insights on. It was very informative, and we're knowledgeable. We're thankful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Praveen. Very, very interesting subject for me personally, being into a similar interest. So very good insights. And I think while we work on the later part, I think you gave us a preamble to how it is produced and what goes into getting the biodiesel. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Praveen ji, there is one more thing. Some of our participants are from outside India.
Okay.
And they were not able to present. Make your lecture online so that they can benefit it also.
Yeah, no problem.
So, if there is no more question, then on the behalf of JC Bose University of Science and Technology, I thank you, Dr. Praveen, to be with us and spare his valuable time to enlighten us with his talk. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
And thank you for all participants also for being us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nikhil. Thank you so much.
Praveen ji, may I close the session now?
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
We'll talk later, sir. No problem. So you can right now go ahead with closing the session.